There's a strange old story they used to tell in the damp, forgotten villages huddled in the shadow of the Carpathian Mountains. It's a foolish little tale, really. Not about vampires or werewolves, nothing so glamorous. It's about a man who fell in love with his own shadow. At first, it was a simple companionship. Where he went, it went. A silent, loyal, ink-black twin. But then a creeping madness took hold. He began to believe the shadow was a separate being, a starved and lonely creature that needed to be nourished. He would leave plates of food for Amatis on the floor, which of course remained untouched. He'd buy it fine silks, draping them over the empty air where it lay, only to see them fall into a useless pile. He spoke to it, whispered his deepest secrets to its silent, two-dimensional form. His friends, his family, they pleaded with him. "You are starving yourself," they'd say. "Your house is falling into ruin. You speak only to the absence of light." But he saw their concern as jealousy. They didn't understand his profound, silent communion. The man grew thin, gaunt. His face became a mask of hollowed-out devotion. The more he offered the shadow, the more it seemed to demand. It grew longer in the evening sun, darker at high noon. It stretched and warped, and in his fevered mind, it was becoming a god. He spent his last coin on a banquet for his silent companion, a feast of roasted game and spiced wine, all laid out on the dusty floor of his crumbling home. He watched, with rapturous intensity, as his shadow fell across the food. He smiled, believing it was finally consuming his offering. He died of starvation a week later, curled on the floor, his hand outstretched, trying to touch the edge of that faithful, empty shape. We, of course, are far too sophisticated for such primitive allegories, aren't we? We have our apps, our profiles, our carefully curated highlight reels. We don't fall in love with shadows on the wall. We fall in love with shadows on a screen. Phantoms built of light and code. Curated ghosts that we decide to call soulmates. And so the modern man performs the same ritual, just with more elegant props. He lays out a banquet not of food, but of self. He serves his ambition on a silver platter. He pours his time, his energy, his very essence into a crystal goblet. He offers up his hobbies, his solitude, his strange and private thoughts, his very marrow, hoping the ghost he is chasing will finally partake. This is the first and most painful truth, the one that tastes like ash in your mouth after a night of cheap wine and cheaper promises. The chase for love, when it becomes an obsession, is not an act of connection. It is an act of self-cannibalism, performed in slow motion. You become a curator for a museum of two, but you are the only one paying the price of admission. You learn her favorite songs and forget the music that once stirred your own soul. You adopt her opinions on art, on politics, on the proper way to fold a towel, and the sound of your own unvarnished thoughts becomes a faint, irritating hum in the back of your mind. You text back in seconds, a trained dog leaping for a digital pat on the head, while your own projects, the book you were writing, the engine you were rebuilding, the silent peace of a long walk with no destination, they gather dust in the locked room of your soul. You are not building a relationship. You are auditioning for one. You are a performer, and your stage is your own life. The applause you seek is her validation, her affection, her choosing you. But the terrible secret, the one whispered by philosophers in their lonely attics and by old men on their deathbeds, is that a hollow man cannot be chosen. He can only be used. A space cannot be loved. It can only be occupied. Think of Kierkegaard's Sickness unto Death. He wasn't talking about a fever or a plague. He was talking about the despair of not being your authentic self. This is that sickness, in its most modern, romantic, and grotesque form. It's the slow, comfortable erasure of the soul in another's gaze. It feels like devotion. It feels like sacrifice. But it is a suicide of the spirit, one tiny concession at a time. Psychologists have a clean, sterile term for it now. They call it identity diffusion. A 2024 study out of a research institute in Helsinki, the kind of study buried in academic journals no one reads, drew a chilling line between what they called performative romantic pursuit in the digital age and a measurable decay in core identity markers. It's a clinical, bloodless way of saying what the old story of the shadow already knew. The more you peacock for a phantom, the more of your own feathers you pluck out. You are not making yourself more attractive. You are making yourself more transparent. Eventually, the world, and the very person you seek, will see right through you. This isn't a call to bitterness or cold-hearted isolation. Quite the opposite. There is a fragile, terrifying hope hidden in this darkness. The moment you stop serving the ghost is the moment you can finally prepare a meal for yourself. The moment you pull your energy back from the void, you find it flooding back into you. The colors of the world seem sharper. The silence of your own apartment is no longer a threat, but a sanctuary. The work of your own hands feels sacred again. You stop turning love into a desperate game of acquisition and begin to see it as a potential byproduct of a life well lived. A life that is whole and dense and real. A life that has weight. A house that is owned, not rented. So here's the question I leave with you tonight. As the candle burns low and the shadows stretch across your own floor, look down at your hands. What feast have you prepared for your own ghost? What parts of you have you served up on a platter, hoping for a crumb of validation in return? And tell me, whispering it only to yourself if you must, who is really starving at your table? A flawless love is the most beautiful prison ever built. Let me tell you a secret about beautiful things. The kind of beauty that stops your breath. The kind that seems too perfect for this cracked and messy world. It lies. All of it. That perfect, unblemished apple, one bite away from revealing the worm. That serene, glassy lake, its stillness hides the mud and rot at the bottom. The most beautiful things are the most accomplished liars. And the most accomplished liar of all is the ideal of a perfect love. It's the quiet little God we worship in this age of filters and curated realities. We don't build stone altars anymore. We build them out of pixels and expectations. We scroll through the lives of others, these pristine, sun-drenched dioramas of affection, and we think, I want that. That flawless couple, laughing over artisanal coffee, their skin poreless, their arguments seemingly resolved with a single, heartfelt conversation under white linen sheets. This is Machiavelli's deadliest game, not of states and princes, but of the human heart. The strategy is not to win a person, but to construct a reality. To build a cage of such exquisite, breathtaking beauty that the prisoner thanks you for the bars. The man who falls for this trap doesn't seek a partner. He seeks an accessory to his own aesthetic. He wants the woman who is a living, breathing testament to his good taste. She must be intelligent, but not in a way that disrupts his own narratives. Beautiful, but in a way that feels timeless and manageable. Not wild and threatening. Her passions must be neat, her past sanitized, her flaws charmingly minor, like a single artfully placed mole on a marble statue. He becomes a curator of their shared existence. Their home is not a home, it is a gallery. The furniture is arranged for sightlines, not for comfort. The books on the shelf are chosen for the color of their spines. Spontaneity is the enemy. A sudden, messy burst of laughter is a crack in the plaster. A tearful, irrational argument is a vandal splashing paint on the Mona Lisa. He doesn't realize he is building a prison for two. His love is the love of a gardener for a prize-winning rose. He will prune it, feed it, shelter it from the wind and the rain. He will kill any aphid or weed that dares to come near it. He will admire its perfect form, its vibrant color, its delicate scent. But he will never allow it to grow wild. He will never allow it to be just a flower, subject to the whims of the earth. It is an object of control, a testament to his skill as a gardener. And what of the woman in this glass terrarium? She feels the pressure, the silent, crushing weight of his expectations. She learns to perform her role. She smothers her own chaotic, inconvenient, beautifully human impulses. She files down the jagged edges of her personality until they are smooth and harmless. She becomes tasteful, elegant, and hollow. Her laughter becomes a little quieter. Her opinions a little more hedged. She is loved not for who she is, but for the perfection of her performance. She is a ship in a bottle, exquisite to behold, and utterly incapable of sailing on a real ocean. This is the Apollonian dream turned into a suburban nightmare. Nietzsche warned us of this. The triumph of pure, rational, beautiful order, the Apollonian, over the messy, chaotic, passionate, and vital force of life, the Dionysian. A perfect relationship is the ultimate Apollonian fantasy. It is a dream of pure form, of light without shadow. But a life without shadow is the life of a ghost. It has no depth, no texture, no reality. In the quest to eliminate all chaos, you eliminate all life. There's an old, forgotten myth, not Greek, something whispered from the frost-bitten north, about a lonely artisan god who decided to craft the perfect wife. He rejected clay as too common, wood as too perishable. He chose to carve her from a single, flawless diamond. It took him 1,000 years. When he was finished, she was breathtaking. She captured and refracted the light of every star in the cosmos. She was brilliant, indestructible, and silent. He would talk to her for centuries, and she would listen, her facets gleaming with what he mistook for understanding. He would adorn her with galaxies, and she would wear them without complaint. But she could not bleed. She could not weep. She could not offer the warmth of a single breath on a cold night. The god spent eternity polishing her, admiring his own perfect creation, dying of a loneliness so profound it swallowed stars, all while sitting next to the most beautiful object in the universe. We're doing the same thing, just faster. A 2025 psychological review analyzing relational satisfaction metrics uncovered a chilling paradox. The more aesthetically perfect a couple's shared online presence, the higher their self-reported levels of private resentment and emotional suffocation. The data whispers what the myth screams. We are building beautiful, minimalist tombs and calling them relationship goals. The tragic hope in this sterile room is the embrace of imperfection. It is the liberation that comes from kicking over the chessboard. The moment a man decides he would rather have a messy, authentic, unpredictable woman than a flawless mannequin, he is freed. The moment he can look at a crack in the foundation of their life not as a failure, but as proof that it is real, that it is living and settling and breathing, that is the beginning of love. The real thing, not the curated exhibit. Strength isn't found in maintaining the flawless facade. It's found in the courage to let it crumble and to love the beautiful, chaotic ruins that remain. So I ask you, my friend, as you sit there in the quiet of your own well-ordered life, what beautiful cage are you building? Look around you, at the life you aspire to, at the partner you dream of. Is it a person you want, or a portrait? And what vital, messy, beautifully human part of yourself or of her will you have to kill to keep it clean? To be free, a man must learn to let his ghosts die. The past is a house of locked doors, and in your hand, 1,000 keys. You think it's choice when you explore, but you are a slave to memories. There is a form of haunting more insidious than any clanking chain or midnight specter. It doesn't rattle the windows. It settles deep within the marrow of your bones. It is the haunting of the past. The warm, benevolent ghosts of what was, and the cold, ravenous ghosts of what could have been. Every man carries a graveyard inside him, a quiet, sprawling landscape of memory where he wanders in the lonely hours. Here is the headstone for the love he fumbled, etched with the epitaph. She was the one. Over there, under a weeping willow, is the monument to the person he used to be. That younger, more hopeful man who believed the world was a story waiting for him to write its heroic ending. And scattered everywhere are the small, unmarked graves of 1,000 tiny regrets. This is the most romantic, and therefore the most dangerous form of solitude. It feels like wisdom, like introspection. It feels noble to be the faithful keeper of these tombs. You are the curator of your own private museum of heartache. You polish the plaques. You lay fresh flowers of nostalgia on the graves. You whisper their names in the dark, believing this ritual keeps them, and some essential part of you, alive. But you are not a keeper. You are an inmate. This is Machiavelli's game played against yourself, with your own memory as the board. You weaponize your past against your present. Every new person is held up against the perfected, idealized light of a ghost. Every new opportunity is measured against the imagined glory of a path not taken. You are trying to live in two timelines at once, and the predictable result is that you exist fully in neither. A new woman enters your life. She is real. She is complicated. She has bad days and messy habits and opinions that clash with yours. She is beautifully, maddeningly present. But you cannot see her clearly. You see her only through a shimmering mirage of her, the ghost on the throne. The one from 5, maybe 10 years ago. The one whose flaws you have conveniently forgotten, whose memory you have curated into an impossible standard. Neuroscientists in Kyoto, using their glowing brain scans and sterile machines, recently confirmed what poets have always known. They published a paper in 2024, a quiet little thing, showing that memory is not a file you retrieve. It is not a recording. It is a live performance. Every single time you recall a memory, your brain actively rewrites it. You are not just observing a ghost. You are resculpting it with the chisel of your current loneliness, your current dissatisfaction. You are not remembering a person. You are perfecting a phantom, making her more luminous, more understanding, more tragically perfect than she ever was in the flesh. You have created an unbeatable rival for any living, breathing woman, a dead saint. How can a real person, with her beautiful imperfections, ever compete with that? This devotion to ghosts is a gentle, poetic form of suicide. It ensures you will remain alone, but it gives you a noble reason for it. I am alone, you tell yourself, because no one measures up. The truth is, you are alone because you are still in a relationship with a specter. You are sleeping next to an empty space in your bed that is more occupied, more real to you than a physical body could ever be. There is a dark northern fable about a creature called the Hjemsøger, the memory weaver. It doesn't eat your flesh or drink your blood. It finds you when you are lost and grieving, and it offers you a gift. It spins a cocoon of your happiest memory around you. You are 17 again, driving on a summer night with the windows down, the radio playing that one song, and she is laughing beside you. You are there. You can smell the vinyl of the car seats, feel the warm air on your skin, and it is perfect. The weaver lets you live in that single, perfect loop forever. While you are lost in that blissful dream, your real body, sitting under a tree in the real world, slowly withers and turns to dust. We are all our own memory weavers. We spin these cocoons for ourselves every time we say, "If only." The true terrifying act of liberation is not to forget. You can never forget. The act is to consciously, deliberately, let the ghosts die. It is to walk into your own inner graveyard, not as a mourner, but as a groundskeeper with a shovel. It is to stand before the most beautiful, most painful monument, the one you have polished with a decade of your own tears, and to say out loud, to the silent air, "Thank you. You were real and you are gone. I release you." It is an act of profound violence against your own romantic suffering, and it is the only thing that will set you free. The fragile hope here is in that release. When you let the dead rest, you discover something shocking. Empty space. Air. The possibility of something new growing in the fallow ground. The silence in your mind is no longer filled with the whispers of echoes, but with the quiet, terrifying, exhilarating hum of the present moment. So I ask you this, in the stillness of this night, which ghost visits you in the quiet hours? Whose name is the key to your favorite, most beautifully tragic room in the mausoleum of your heart? And do you have the courage to finally, gently, put the key in the lock and walk away without looking back? The man who can't be wounded is the man who can't be reached. Imagine a knight. His armor is a masterpiece, forged in the fires of his own past traumas and cooled in the waters of his cynicism. It is seamless, polished to a mirror shine, without a single scratch or dent. He has won every battle he has ever fought. No sword of criticism can pierce him. No arrow of judgment can find a chink. He is a walking fortress, a monument to invulnerability. There is just one problem. The armor is fused to his skin. He can no longer take it off, and he is starving to death inside. This is the great, tragic lie of modern masculinity. The equation of strength with impenetrability. We are taught from boys to build this armor. Don't cry. Don't show fear. Be a rock. Be a provider. Be the unshakable oak in the storm. Your feelings are a liability, a weakness to be hidden, managed, and ultimately cauterized. So you spend years forging your suit. Every heartbreak adds another layer of steel. Every disappointment hardens the breastplate. Every moment of fear is hammered into a stronger gauntlet. You learn the stoic gaze, the detached shrug, the vocabulary of indifference. You become an expert in the architecture of the emotional fortress, and you call this strength. But it is the most profound weakness imaginable. It is not strength. It is fear wearing a disguise of iron. The man who cannot be wounded is not a god. He is a coward. hiding in the safest, most desolate prison ever conceived, himself. This is the Machiavellian gambit turned inward, a strategy of self-defeat disguised as self-preservation. You think you are protecting your kingdom, but you are sealing its doom. Because love, real love, the kind that rewires your soul, is not a treaty signed between two fortresses. It is a messy, terrifying, and sacred exchange of vulnerability. It requires an opening, a wound, a crack in the armor where the light can get in. The man in the seamless suit approaches a woman not as a potential partner, but as a potential threat. Every question she asks is a probe for weakness. Every touch is a test of his defenses. He is not present in the relationship. He is on guard duty. He offers stability, resources, unwavering logic. He offers the things his armor can provide. But he cannot offer the one thing that matters, himself. The raw, unprotected, terrified, and hopeful thing living inside the steel. He cannot be soothed because he will never admit he is in pain. He cannot be known because he will never reveal his true face. He is dancing with her, but he is wearing a suit of armor that weighs 1,000 pounds. He moves with stiff, predictable precision, while she longs for the fluid, clumsy, authentic dance of skin on skin. Schopenhauer would have smirked at this folly. He knew that the will to live, that blind, irrational, striving force within us, cannot be contained by the neat, rational walls we build. It will fester. It will curdle. A 2023 study out of a German institute specializing in, of all things, loneliness, confirmed this with cold data. They found that men who scored highest on metrics of self-perceived resilience, the I can handle anything on my own types, also reported the shallowest personal relationships and the highest levels of ambient, existential dread. Their fortress protected them so perfectly that it starved them of meaning. The armor works. That's the tragedy. It keeps everything out. Everything. There's an old tale of a king so consumed by the fear of assassins that he built a palace without a single door or window. He used the world's finest architects to construct an impenetrable cube of marble and granite. He had enough food, water, and wine to last 100 years, all sealed inside with him. He was, by any measure, the safest man in the history of the world. The chronicles say, he died of loneliness within the first year, his screams unheard, his kingdom thriving outside the walls of his perfect safety. You are that king. The hope, the strange and difficult liberation in this truth is a paradox. True strength, true power in the realm of the human heart is not the ability to prevent a wound. It is the courage to choose to be wounded. It is the conscious decision to find a crack in your own armor and hand the person you trust a chisel. It is the terrifying, God-like power of choosing to be vulnerable. To lower the drawbridge of your own accord is not an act of surrender. It is an act of supreme confidence. It is you telling the world and yourself that you are strong enough to be broken and therefore strong enough to be loved. A man who can cry without shame, who can admit his fear without apology, who can say, I need you without feeling diminished. That man is not weak. He is terrifyingly powerful. He has nothing to hide. He is indestructible in his authenticity. He has turned love from a battlefield into a sanctuary, and the price of admission was his own pride. So, go ahead. Polish your armor. Admire its perfect, unblemished surface in the candlelight. Feel the cold, reassuring weight of it on your shoulders. But I dare you, in the suffocating silence of your own perfect safety, to ask yourself a question. What is it that you're really protecting? And is it worth the price of never feeling anything ever again? The man who finally stops chasing becomes a king of a silent, desolate, and magnificent empire. Himself. So, you lose. After all the banquets for the ghosts, all the polishing of the beautiful cages, all the lonely vigils in the graveyard of your heart, after reinforcing the armor until you could no longer breathe, it all comes to nothing. She leaves, or she was never there to begin with. The grand project of winning love, the central organizing principle of your life, collapses. The theater burns down, the audience goes home. The silence that follows is not peaceful. It is absolute. It is the silence of a dead god on an abandoned altar. This is the moment every man fears, the void, the failure, the final undeniable proof of your own unworthiness. You have been checkmated. And in that deafening silence, after the grief and the rage have burned themselves out, the strangest thing happens. You open your eyes. You look around at the ruins of your own making. And for the first time, you are not looking for someone else's reflection in the rubble. You are just looking. This is the fifth and final truth, the one that can only be learned in the ashes. The moment a man truly, finally, stops chasing what destroys him, he is not left with nothing. He is left with everything. He inherits a kingdom. It is a vast and silent kingdom. Its landscapes are the contours of his own mind. Its rivers are his thoughts, flowing clear and cool, no longer muddied by the frantic need for approval. Its mountains are his principles, which he now discovers were there all along, buried under layers of performance and compromise. Its only citizen and its only sovereign is him. This is the great and terrible liberation. The Machiavellian game is over because you have finally stopped playing against an external opponent. The only strategic imperative left is to rule yourself. At first, this kingdom feels like exile. It is desolate. The phone doesn't ring. The nights are long. The habits you built around another person, the goodnight texts, the shared meals, the inside jokes, are now like ghost limbs aching with phantom pains. You are haunted by the echo of a life you failed to build. But then, slowly, you begin to explore your new domain. You start that project you abandoned. You listen to that music you'd forgotten you loved. You walk for hours with no destination, simply feeling the rhythm of your own footsteps on the pavement. You are no longer a curator, a performer, a mourner, or a soldier. You are an explorer in the undiscovered country of your own soul. Nietzsche dreamed of this man, the Übermensch, not a tyrant, not a superhero, just a man who has overcome himself. A man who has stopped seeking value from external gods or lovers and has begun the terrifying, exhilarating work of creating his own. This is that man, born not of triumph, but of utter defeat. He had to lose the whole world to gain himself. There is a legend, whispered among desert mystics, of a great conqueror, an emperor who brought the entire known world to its knees. Upon winning his final battle, he stood on a mountaintop overlooking his vast, unified empire and felt nothing. The chase was over, and it had been the only thing giving him life. In an act of what his generals called madness, he abdicated the throne, dismissed his armies, and walked away from the wealth of 1,000 nations. He walked alone into the great, empty desert, with nothing but a canteen of water and the clothes on his back. His advisors were certain he would die. But it was there, in the shimmering heat and the crushing silence, with no one to rule and nothing left to conquer, that he finally felt the power he had sought his entire life. It was the power of being the undisputed master of his own solitary existence. Modern science, in its sterile way, is just now catching up to this ancient wisdom. Psychologists talk of post-traumatic growth. A 2025 meta-analysis, buried in some academic journal, looked at individuals who suffered a total collapse of their central life goal. What it found was a strange alchemy. After the fire, after the grief, many survivors reported a reconstructed identity that was stronger, more authentic, and more internally defined than the one they had lost. They had to be shattered to become whole. This kingdom is not a consolation prize. It is the ultimate leverage. The man who rules himself, who needs nothing from anyone, who finds a quiet, profound satisfaction in his own company, becomes magnetic in a way he never could when he was needy and chasing. He no longer seeks love, and so love, in its strange, paradoxical way, may begin to seek him. But it no longer matters. A visiting dignitary is welcome in his kingdom, but the throne is not for sale. The king does not abdicate. The world has taught you to fear this silence, this magnificent emptiness. It has taught you that to be alone is to be a loser. But you have walked through the fire of the 5 truths. You have seen the hungry ghost, the perfect cage, the lonely graveyard, and the suffocating armor. You have seen the game for what it is. So the final question is not a riddle, a dare, or an accusation. It is a quiet choice, offered to you now, in the stillness. Will you run back to the noise, to the chase, to the familiar, comfortable prisons you know so well? Or will you have the courage to ascend the throne of your own silent kingdom and finally, learn to rule?